Okay, hello. Um, it's Teresa here, and I'm going to just do the short recording just to do the overview on the QQI again. So I'm going to start with our Teams channel and have a look at the general channel. I put up a post for you attaching who we are booklet, the most recent booklet from the QQI telling you about who they are and what they do. So just that you have a fair idea of QQI certification and what it's involved. So I'm going to go to the files, and under files I've created a folder called QQI assessment information, and underneath that you have a list of the QQI modules you're doing. So I'm just going to click in here for a moment and have a look at the QQI modules, and this is the major award specification, where underneath it you have the single modules that we're doing as part of that major award. And here's digital marketing. So these are here for you to come in and have a look at any time that you want to. So I'll just bring up this as a bigger view, and these can be downloaded from the QQI.ie website itself. And as you can see, QQI stands for Quality and Qualifications Ireland, and each component brings you through the different learning outcomes. So depending on the module, there's normally 9 to 11 learning outcomes. And when you have all of the learning outcomes done, then you can complete part of the assignment. So we have learning outcome 1 finished, and in fact we've learning outcome 2 finished, but I've given you part 1 of the portfolio to complete, which covers learning outcome 1. Okay, so if I go down here, I can read that there's 12 learning outcomes, and then it gives you a section on assessment general information, the techniques that we can use. So for this assessment criteria for the QQI certificate attached to the digital marketing module, you complete a portfolio collection of work for 50%, and that's got 5 parts. And as I said, I've issued part 1 today. And then when you have those 5 parts done, you've covered the learning outcomes 1 to 12. And then you get a project based on your learning, where you get a real life scenario and you have to go ahead and create a campaign for a customer. And then it gives you a description of what a project and a portfolio collection of work means. Okay, and there's also something called a recognition of prior learning. So if you had done this module already in recent years, or if you had completed part of it on another module, so for example, communications and work experience, there's a crossover between them. So when you do the interview for work experience, it also ticks the box for the interview in your communications module, for example. So there is a recognition of prior learning done, where sometimes when there's a crossover between modules, you don't have to complete all of the required tasks because you're going to complete them on another module. But for this particular one, you have to complete all of the tasks. And then overall, when everything's marked and done, it amounts to 100%. And if you get between 80 and 100%, you acquire a distinction. And if you get between 65 and 79, you're awarded a merit. And if you get between 50 and 64, you're awarded a pass. Now, if you do everything that's required of you for the module, generally people are sitting at a merit. And then if you excel in your production, you generally get a distinction. And a lot of the time, if people only do part of what's required of them, they end up getting a pass because they just haven't done enough work to acquire a higher grade on the marking scheme. So that's the QQI module itself. And there's one of those in here for each one of the modules that we're doing. Okay, so with Maria, you're covering computer illustrated graphics and desktop publishing. Richie, web authoring. I'm also going to do the internet e-business, work placement. Trish is covering customer service. Okay, so within all of the training, you're also requiring a QQI certificate, which is a requirement of the course. Okay, so we're also going to go into the QQI assessment information. And that's where I've put up different bits and pieces just to remind you of how QQI works, or this may be the first time that you've met it. So I'm going to start off with who we are booklet. So this booklet brings you through who the QQI are. Okay, what's their mission, who we work with, what they do, why there's quality assurance involved in this, and basically the quality assurance ensures that no matter what centre you go to, you achieve the same award. Okay, now this is Ireland's national framework of qualifications. So if you did the junior cert or the inter cert back in the day, that would bring you to a level 3 on the national framework of qualifications. Then, if you did a leaving cert, depending whether you did pass or honours, pass would be level 4, honours would be level 5. And then there's also a certification route, a PLC, post leaving certificate courses, and that's where we sit. And we're sitting a post leaving certificate, and that's also sitting in the level 5 framework of qualifications. And then if you do a level 6, you're coming up on advanced certification at level 6. And then when you get into level 7, you're at the undergraduate level. So say if you went into the GMIT, you can do a level 6 diploma, and then you do a third year, which brings you to a level 7 ordinary bachelor degree. And then if you add one more year onto it, you get an honours bachelor degree. So once you have your honours bachelor degree, then you can go on and do 1 year top-ups, higher diplomas, which are also level 8, but then you keep adding to your degree. So say if you got a degree in science, then you could do a HDip in environmental science, and you could do a HDip in something else and something else, and they all just get added on to that original honours bachelor degree. And then if you want to go to masters or postgraduate diplomas, you're at a level 9. And then if you want to go to doctorate level, you're at level 10. And a professorate isn't even on it, but it's a level 11 award. And then on that document, it comes down here and it also explains the European equivalent and recognition of foreign qualifications in Ireland. So if you've got any of those, click on the NARIC Ireland qualifications database and see what your country's qualifications are equivalent to. And you can actually contact QQI and you can send them off and you can get them recognised in Ireland. Okay, Europass is a good website to look at as well. And then if we're looking at international education, you can do the same thing again. And if you read on down through this, you will see various different links to where you can contact people. Okay, so that's the QQI Who We Are booklet. So now I'm going to get down to the minor award itself. So I'm just going to come in here and I have a learner guide to assessment, and there's an easy to read version there as well. But this is the comprehensive guide to learner guide to assessment. Now this is issued by the GRETB to every learner that comes in to do something. Okay, so learner guide to assessment, here we are. So introduction to the guide, there's a table of contents here and it brings you down and it explains what assessment is, fees, there's no fees attached to you guys. What will I be assessed on? How will I be assessed? And then it comes in about when, if I have specific needs, how can they be met? What will happen if I don't want to do it? What should I expect on the day? Who will mark it? How results are graded? And it brings you all the way through from start to finish. What can I do if I don't pass? What can I do if I'm not happy? Number 15, will I get a certificate? 16, what are the rules on the assessment day? So there's all sorts of rules. So it's very much ran like the Leaving Cert it's a very serious matter when we come to QQI. There's a huge amount of quality assurance around this that we need to follow. Make sure we maintain the standards of issuing the assignment, the level of difficulty of an assignment itself, if it's pitched at level 5, how we mark it, and then push it through for QQI certification. So we have to follow quality assurance guidelines the whole way through, and these are all checked up by externals and internal vigilators. Um, and then it goes down just so it kind of like gives you a good interview of the assessment itself. Okay, so that's worth a read. So I'm just skipping through these really quickly. Okay, so then I have QQI. So this is the Learner Guide to Assessment, easy to read version. And that was just created as a quick guide so people can just throw their eye on it and what goes on the whole way down. Okay, so then I'm going to go back to the drive again and then just a quick synopsis of the guide grading criteria. Okay, so there's no rocket science attached to this. This is what a learner has to complete if they're going to get a pass, merit, or distinction. And all of our rubrics are based on this and our marking sheets. Okay, so you get a pass if you achieve all the bullet points there. You get a merit if you achieve all the points there, and a distinction if you achieve all of the bullet points under distinction. So when it comes to assessment, the work is all of years. Likewise, within that folder, then I have put up the academic writing handbook that's been floating around the GRETB and further education sector. It's a good read. I know it's long, but you can skip through it and it brings it through referencing and research and primary research and secondary research and so on, and what they all mean. And then here's the long citing Harvard guide that I was talking about earlier on, and it brings it through a 40-page document on how to reference a book and how to reference a website and a poem and journal articles, newspaper, electronic information, and so on. So it gives you an example of each one. And here's the Harvard cheat sheet, which is a smaller version of the long one. And I've downloaded these off the Galway University information page. It's the same no matter where you go. And again, it's just giving you the short examples of how you reference each one. So it's a good sheet to have there. Then we come into the essay task words. And if you're confused about the instructions, come in and open this and say, okay, I've been asked to list something. So list is not even there because a list is just a bullet point word. If you're asked to explain, give reasons for, show why something is the way it is, that particular one that you have is more about describe. Say or write what something is like, its relevant qualities, depending on the nature of the task. Descriptions may need to be brief or they may need to be very detailed. So I said your description can be 2 to 3 sentences. Okay, so that's that one. And in addition here, I put in example of referencing a book, just so that you can see what I mean about referencing a book. So as I said today, if you read something, so you might be asked to write about Facebook. You know all about Facebook. You can just type the words. But you read them somewhere. So you still have to give a nod to some site, book, or piece of material that you read that explained to you what Facebook is. And so the easiest thing to do is use one of the websites on the list and use the website as a reference, even if you are typing it out of your head. And what we mean about your own words is try and rewrite something as you would say it. This is called paraphrasing. It is much easier to tell a story in your own words, and it's much easier when referencing material. So that example above, the office and its functions, has got 2 paragraphs, and I put down in your own words, um, an in your own words synopsis so that it makes sense. So I just want to um, change the format of that so that you can actually see it. And I'm going to wrap the text in line. Okay, so now you can see the piece of text. So that's the book, and then the own words bit is underneath. Okay, so you're saying the same thing, but you're saying it in your own words. Okay, so that's referencing it in your own words. You can use a direct quote, but always be careful with direct quotes because then you have to also say what page they're on. So the difference between just saying something in your own words and referencing the book is you do something like this. Okay, so if I go in here to Gallagher 2010, that's who wrote the book in 2010. But if it was a direct quote, then you have to also say the page. And then when you actually create your bibliography at the end, what you have to do is make sure that they're listed in alphabetical order. References are only listed once, even though you might use Gallagher 2 or 3 times, it only appears once in the bibliography, which is correct. And the only instance where the same book would be listed twice or any reference listed twice, like below, is when a direct quote from a page in the book has to be listed. So the way we write it at this point is the same, except that the page number has to be entered at the end of the reference if a direct quote had been used. So I might have to use that a second time, but on the second Gallagher that I've put in there, I would have to put in after it, I would highlight that, and then I would have to use that as a second quote. Okay, it doesn't want to copy for me. And then at the end of it, I would do page 19. Okay, so if that's what I needed to do. All right, so if I was typing it in manually, I would have to do it like this: Gallagher, comma J, and code, the year, and then the name of the book in italics, where it was published, Dublin, and by what publisher, Gill Education. So that's a book. Okay, it's so much easier creating the reference using the Microsoft Word referencing tool. Now, the Microsoft Word referencing tool is the same for the web page as is the book, but this is the book example. But you go to the References tab and you insert citation, and then the type of source here will be web, and then the author, if there is one, with the book is a title, year, city, and publisher, and then with the web page, it is the website, the web page, the URL, and the date of publication. So let me see if I have one for website. So that's a book. You won't be using too many books as a reference, but it's just a good example to use. And we can only do this on the full version of Word. Unfortunately, we can't do it on the version on our desktop. Okay, so I'm just going to come into Word here now and open up the sample that I was using today. And hopefully, I don't even know if I have it. Okay, I'm going to have to start again. So I'm starting off the document and I'm going to list my top social media apps on Hootsuite, because that's what I used. Okay, and literally a list is Facebook is first. First of all, we have Facebook, we have YouTube, we have WhatsApp, and so on. Okay, when I'm finished, if I took the reference of Hootsuite, so I'm just going to come over here and go to Hootsuite, top social media apps 2121, and I should get something. that is interesting. All the social media apps you should know. So that's where we were. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to come down to the bottom here, and you can see then Facebook is first, YouTube is second, and so on. So when I'm ready to reference this, what I need to do is look at so the website is the Hootsuite blog, but the name of the page is all the social media apps you should know in 2021. And Paige Cooper wrote it on May the 17th, 2021. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to Word and I'm ready to put in my reference. So I'm going to come over to my References tab and go to Insert Citation, Add New Source. Okay, so it's not a book, it's a website that I have. So you can see you have book, journals, article in a periodical, conference proceedings, and so on. So I'm going to go for the website. So I said the author was Paige Cooper, Pige Cooper. Now, most of the time there isn't an author on the website, but if there is, you need to put it in. Now, the name of the web page is All the Social Media Apps You Should Know in 2021. The name of the website is Hootsuite itself. The year it was published was 2021, May 17. That's what it says down the bottom left hand corner here. And then I need to come up here and I need to lift this reference. I'm going to right click on this, copy, switch over, come down to the URL, paste it in. Okay. Now, there's one last step on the website. I also need to put in the date I accessed the information. So I need to click on Show All Bibliography Fields, and you can see I've put in the most important ones. Anything with a red star has to be filled in. But for this one and only the website reference, I also need to put in the date I accessed that information. So it's September. I'm going to just put in the short September, and today is the 28th. And when I'm that far, I can click OK, and my reference would appear like that. So now I'm going to come down to Facebook and write a short description. So Facebook is a social networking, and networking app for pleasure, and also has a business page for advertising. Okay, Facebook has the highest number of followers in Ireland and Europe. And according to the Hootsuite Ireland figures, Facebook has 4.8 million followers. I don't know if it is 4.8 million, I'm only making that up. Okay, but I'm telling this in my own words. I'm writing the story in my own words. Can communicate on Facebook with text posts, infographics, videos, polls, carousel feature, stories, and so on. Okay, and all the other ways. I've nearly got them all there now. Carousel, and I think that is right, but I'm not worried. Okay, so now I'm saying that in my own words, but I have read it somewhere. So I'm just going to use the same reference from Hootsuite as I've used above. So I'm going to come back to insert citation. And once I create a reference, it's there and I can use it again and again and again. Okay. Full stop. Take the full stop out of stories. Okay. Carousel feature and stories. So I always put the reference inside of the full stop. Now, if I'm creating Instagram and I'm using the same reference, then I don't need to put this reference after each one. I can just put it at the very end. But if I change the reference, I got to make sure that I reference Facebook with the right reference and Instagram with the right reference. So for example, now with Instagram, I might use a different reference or history of Instagram. So I might use a different reference there altogether. But if I do, then I've got to make sure that I create a new reference here and that I start all over again, inserting my citation, add a new source, and so on. Okay. Now at the very end, I insert a new page, and this comes up on the very last page. And instead of having to remember how to write the bibliography and change it around and make sure it's in alphabetical order and so on, I just come in here and the bibliography creates it for me. So all of this, so even as I'm going along and I put an A in there and a Z, all I do is click here at the very end and update citations, and it will reorder everything again into alphabetical order. You can see you have Cooper P 2021, the date, and then all of the social media apps you should know in italics. So the name of the page, the name of the book is always in italics. And then I have retrieved the data accessed September the 28th, 21 from Hootspot and the URL. Now it's very hard to go back and find them. So at the very least, when you're writing this up, if this is beyond you and you need to come back into another workshop and you're typing away here for Goodo, go to the website and lift the URL, copy it, come back to your Word document and paste it in and have that much there, and I will help you create the rest, because that's the most important thing. If you can't go back and find this, then we can't create the reference. Okay? But this will not be included in your bibliography because you have to insert a citation to include this one. But that's the way to go with it, and see how you go and enjoy the learning. Thank you.